Hello and welcome to the Katie Life Podcast, your window to life in the UAE. My name is Anamika Chatterjee and I am your host. Today in the Katie Life Podcast, we are celebrating books. And what better way to celebrate books in this region than to interview the first Dubai-based author who has bagged a 2-book deal with the American publishing giant Holt. Please join me in welcoming Sara Hamdan.
This is the KT Live podcast by Khaleej Times.
Sara, welcome to the KT Live podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
And many congratulations. You have bagged a very, very, very prestigious book deal with Holt that publishes Toni Morrison and Hilary Mantel, is it?
Yes, that's right. I'm getting goosebumps just hearing you say it out loud.
And it's phenomenal. So what was that exact moment like when you were told that you're going to be published by the Holt?
It's been such a long journey for me with so many ups and downs. I started writing this book over 8 years ago. And in that moment, when the book deal finally came to be, there was a bidding war that happened at night. So it was New York time, 11 p.m. in Dubai. And my agent was messaging me saying, the 3 publishing houses are bidding, and they've all come in at 6 figures. And I was so excited. I tried to stay awake, but then I fell asleep. And when I woke up in the morning, she said, we have the final bid, and it's amazing. And I just jumped up and down. I showed my husband. My kids were running up to me saying, what happened, Mama? Why are you crying? And I said, they're happy tears. They're happy tears. It felt like a dream come true after so long, and it's still hard to believe it until now. It's still hard. I can't believe I'm here talking about it.
You're the first Dubai-based author to get something like this, right?
I think so. I think it's a regional first in terms of getting a publishing deal of this size, but also in the US, which is the biggest book market. So it's something to be celebrated, and I'm just in shock, really, still.
What will people think? That is the title of the book, right?
Yes, it is. What will people think?
What is it about?
It's about a Palestinian-American girl named Mia who lives in New York. And by day, she works in a publishing house as a fact checker. She's calm, she's quiet. But by evening, she's a stand-up comedian in secret. Nobody knows about it. She's got a crush on her boss, so there's a romance element. And there is a diary that she discovers that belongs to her grandmother, which takes us back to Palestine in 1947. And she learns about an illicit love affair. So the main themes of the book are just about discovering who you are, being true to yourself, and having a right to love who you want to love.
You're an Arab American yourself, and your protagonist is an Arab American girl. How important do you think is it to have this kind of representation in mainstream literature?
So important. I grew up without stories where there were strong Arab female leads that I could relate to. I've watched every single J-Lo, Jennifer Aniston romantic comedy out there, and I love them. But you never see yourself reflected in these stories with the cultural identity contradictions and these kind of things. We're seeing a lot more of now, thanks to platforms like Netflix. But it means so much to be able to see yourself in stories and realize that the problems that you have are not singular, that other people share them, that there's a community out there. And I think there's something very nuanced about having this third culture kid identity that so many of us in Dubai do. So you mentioned I'm Arab American, yes, but I actually grew up in Greece. I was born in Kuwait. I have an American passport. Who am I? I've written an entire novel trying to explore these identity issues. And I think that's what's so relatable about this and why a lot of the emotions in it are so universal, because we've all been there.
That's actually an interesting point. You were born in Kuwait, raised in Greece, studied in the US. Which aspects of your writing reflect, these different cultural influences that you've accrued over the years?
So I think this is why storytelling is so appealing to me, because I love talking to people, finding out where they're from, what matters to them, their backgrounds, because I come from so many different places. And I think this is why I was a successful journalist, because I can get along with anybody, because I've lived in so many places and I've met people from all over the world. And it's the beauty of being in a melting pot like Dubai. So I think it's really important for us to share these kind of stories. And this is what I've tried to do both in my professional and creative work.
And your protagonist is a stand-up comedian, a female stand-up comedian.
Yes.
I know that your husband enrolled you for a stand-up comedy course.
Yes.
Why was that?
You've done your research. I used to be absolutely terrified of public speaking. And as a journalist, you always get opportunities to moderate conferences, and it helps take your career to the next level. And I was stuck, and I would always turn them down because the idea of getting up in front of people and just having all these eyes stare at me, it made my hands clammy, my heart would race. It was a proper reaction to public speaking, and I wasn't able to get past it. So he suggested enrolling in a stand-up comedy course. And every Saturday for 6 weeks, 3 hours, I would have to get up and practice these jokes and practice how to stand and your posture and your voice. And there were things that I'm personally very self-conscious about. I have a very soft voice. What if nobody in the back can hear me? Do I have to shout? I'm not a shouter. So working through all these little fears helped me so much that I now actually seek out these opportunities, and I've had incredible public speaking gigs. I've given a creative writing workshop at Harvard University. I've moderated at the Women in Leadership Forum in Dubai. Some really amazing opportunities. I've spoken at Google about public speaking and then trained other people. So it's had a really nice ripple effect, and I think part of it has been wonderful for me personally in terms of my career, but also as women, we tend to be shy and sit back and stand back. And it's so important for us to get up there and share our stories and raise our voices, because this is how you get diversity in thought and shared experiences.
You have also been a journalist, a very successful journalist and an editor. You've been working with CNN. You have written for New York Times on business and finance and travel, of course. But somewhere the business of journalism is also changing. The writing and the kind of writing we do now is very different from traditional forms of journalism, right? And you mentioned public speaking. Public speaking has now become a very important part of your work as a journalist, because people also look at you for your perspectives. So this transition, how easy or difficult is it for journalists to embark on? Because not everybody can, right?
It's so difficult, and none of us can predict the future. You know, when you're in a job interview and they say, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I have no idea what the next 6 months are going to look like, because tech is moving so quickly. My dream when I first started out in journalism was to be the editor-in-chief of a travel magazine. And nowadays you just have influencers who've completely taken over that market, because audiences crave a very personal view at content creation. So the market is changing so quickly, and the types of jobs available are changing so much. And for me personally, I'm interested in telling stories, and I had to learn to adapt to the digital format. I transitioned from working for traditional magazines and media outlets. I started off my career at ITP, Arabian Business, here in Dubai. That was my break into journalism. Worked for some newspapers and local titles, graduated into being the main contributor to the New York Times for 6 years based out of Dubai. But then I moved into tech because I just saw how it was moving, and I didn't understand the internet and how it worked related to content. I needed to understand that. So I did Google for 6 years as editor-in-chief of a blog they have called Think with Google Mina. It focuses on marketing, on advertising. And now I'm the managing editor of an American platform called, it's a tech company called Protocol Labs. And it's a research and development company that focuses on all things internet and Web3. So I'm fascinated with how the internet is changing our lives and how technology impacts our lives, and particularly in how that affects content. We have to move with the times a little bit, but good stories are always good stories, and I think that shines.
primarily because you are now on the other side, on the dark side, if I may say so. How is technology impacting journalism? Because earlier, before the podcast started, we were discussing how ChatGPT is impacting writers, right? Is it going to make writing something that is no longer a feasible profession to pursue?
I think nobody can predict what's going to happen, and things are moving at lightning speed. But so far, ChatGPT can't write books, so I think
Thankfully.
I'm safe. And I think when it comes to elements like humor or emotion, humans still have the edge. Speaking as with my author hat rather than the
Journalist
tech
hat.
editor hat, I would just say that I am in a very lucky position now to have a great job in an industry that is changing so quickly, and at the same time to have this almost safety net that I've worked on for so long that's come in the form of creative work, a novel. Having this artistic fulfillment means everything.
And you started this book before you were pregnant.
Yes.
That was 10 years ago?
Yeah, I started it. So before I was pregnant with my son, so let's say 9 years ago, I had the idea for it and I wrote most of it. I even have a rejection letter from an agent at the agency where I am now represented for the very same book, the early version of the manuscript. And the way that I did it was just to write consistently every single morning. I would arrive early to work after dropping my child off at nursery and just write for half an hour a day. And after a year, I had a novel. And then I had to edit and edit and edit. I just had to edit to death. And you see why many people quit, because it takes a lot of work. And I had to reach out to other editors to make sure there was an objective eye. Eventually, I was part of the fellowship, and that helped. There was a period when, excuse me, I had both of my children, so I had to stop for years at a time. I think a major turning point for me was winning the Netflix Short Story Award, because can I tell you about the way that I found out about it?
Absolutely.
There was a Twitter competition run by the Netflix handle saying, we'd like you to submit a one-page story with a main character who has the same background as you. So I had something in my drawer from 10 years before that I typed up and sent featuring a Palestinian American in New York. And I was first runner-up. It won an award. I had to go to London in the middle of the pandemic after a year of being
This
at
was
home.
in 2020?
Yes.
Okay.
After, at that time, a year of being in the pandemic with 2 kids under the age of 5 and my leggings and mom bun every day, suddenly I was at this glamorous party in London, the Picture House Central in Piccadilly, wearing a Rami Al-Ali dress, accepting this award, and I thought, okay, this is the time to get back to that novel. And then I won the fellowship with the first chapter, Siddiqui ELF, and spent the year just focused, editing, and that's when everything happened.
What sort of support did you receive as part of this fellowship?
The fellowship was everything, because as a writer, it can be very solitary. You're in isolation at your desk every day, coming back to it, wondering, am I crazy? Or is there substance here? And the fellowship was that validation that I needed. I should tell you that before the fellowship, I actually wrote another novel that the year before I tried to submit to agents. I got over 12 rejections, and I had reached a low point where I thought, this is just never going to happen for me, and I'm investing my time in the wrong place. So winning that fellowship gave me that nudge of, no, get back to it, but this time with a better story. So I sat down and I did that, but this time with the help of it was like a support group of my fellows. So there were 9 other people, and we've become such close friends. We have a WhatsApp group that until now we message each other saying, how are you feeling today? Don't worry about that rejection. There's a dedicated mentor. Mine was a famous Icelandic crime thriller novelist named Ursa. And she was incredible at helping me structure it and having those little clues. So having someone who specializes in atmosphere and murder mystery brought so much newness and uniqueness to my novel, which deals with stand-up comedy and culture. I really, really enjoyed working with her. And then we had best-selling authors from the UK and the US give us tailored workshops. And the big finale was going to New York all together on a trip where we got to do a dedicated writing workshop. So for the first time in my life, I think I started to treat writing seriously. I am a writer. I finally believed it. And when I believed it, I think I manifested it to finally happen.
I am a writer. I personally feel, because I'm a writer myself, I personally feel it's a luxury to also call yourself a writer, because a few years ago I was talking to the Booker shortlisted author from Dubai, Avni Doshi, and she told me that, to be a writer, to be a full-time writer, you have to make sure that you're financially secure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Because it's not something that can help you pay your bills on a month-to-month basis. Do you agree with that school of thought?
I'm at the beginning of my writing journey as an author, so I think she's more experienced because her novel's been out for a few years. But I will say that I think I still see it as more creative, artistic fulfillment. I still have a full-time job that I love, and I have no intention of leaving because it gives me the stability of the monthly income and a team to work with, which I really like, versus writing alone every day. It can be quite lonely. But I think that where I'm very lucky is getting this incredible book deal with Holt, where if I wanted to, I do have a little more financial freedom than before. And in my mind, this is very much just the beginning of what I hope is a long career as an author. So if I can get my ducks in a row and churn out books every couple of years to this level, I think I would be able to be a full-time author.
Another aspect of your writing is your love for travel. And the blog that you started, Holiday on Heels.
Yes.
Right? What got you interested in travel writing?
I've always loved traveling, and I think part of it is because I've lived in so many countries and moved around. And it's so nice to see different places. I think we were put here not to just sit in one place. The world is so big. And when you travel, you realize that your problems are small, and there are just so many different landscapes that it's a treat to see. And I do love a luxury hotel. I like a chocolate mint on the pillow, I'm not going to lie. So I started off freelancing a little bit, and when I was working at ITP, I was a deputy editor of a women's lifestyle title, and my job was to be the travel editor. And it was so much fun. I got to travel around and do press trips, but then when I fell pregnant with my son, I couldn't do that anymore and left. And that's when I started Holidays in Heels. It was my outlet. I was trying to also figure out this whole content moving to digital thing that we were talking about earlier. I think as a journalist, it's become so important to have an online presence. And I didn't want to do a blog or an Instagram account that was just about me and my life and what I've eaten or what my children are doing. So I needed some focus to it, and travel came the most naturally to me. And I was able to then promote the articles that I would write. So I was doing freelance pieces for Condé Nast Traveler, Travel and Leisure, CNN Travel, and then I would post about those on my account. So it became just a nice outlet. But then during the pandemic, it quieted down.
The pandemic has changed most of us, I mean, that's a common refrain. But did it bring a sense of urgency about writing?
Absolutely. I think the pandemic was like a great reset. It made me sit down and think about, how do I want to live my life? At that stage, I was working as the editor-in-chief of Think with Google MENA. I was entering my 6th year in that same role, and it was wonderful, and I liked the people, but it was very stagnant. There was nowhere else. I couldn't move up. I couldn't move sideways. And I wanted to grow. I think it's just my character. I was craving something else. So without a plan B, I quit my job in April of 2021. And I just said, you know what? I've been talking about dedicating myself to writing a novel for so long. It's been nearly a 10-year dream. It's now or never. It's the pandemic. Let me just try. And to your point about financial stability, I couldn't have done this if I hadn't saved money from a long career of working, but also my husband was helping take care of the bills. I had literally a partner there who said, do this, it's your time. And I think having that was wonderful. So I did it. And it led to a great outcome. And it's our win. I couldn't have done this without him.
You know, one is also observing Arab voices in literature coming together, especially when it comes to contemporary writing in English. Joka Omani author Joka Al-Harthi won a Booker for her novel. So, what about the stories from this region are appealing to Western readers now, in your opinion, if at all? I mean, I just want to understand that what are the reasons that the West has opened itself up to, reading stories from this region all of a sudden?
I think it's a great question. And I think it goes back to what we were saying before about the internet.
Yeah.
The internet has democratized the way that we consume content. So I think in the West and everywhere, they're realizing that you can't have one kind of story anymore. Those worked, but there's also many people who want to listen to or watch or read many kinds of stories. And we're seeing the success of that with things on Amazon Prime and Netflix and all of these different platforms that now allow us to consume different kinds of content. So I think representation is becoming very important. I'm sure publishers will tell you that there is even a push for diversity. And I also think that it's moved from being a niche or regional focus to something that's bigger. So my novel isn't coming out from the Middle East and other people are now reading it around the world. It's going straight into the biggest market in the biggest way. And I think that's what's really exciting. I probably held myself back for a long time from putting this out there because I was worried that I would just be pigeonholed. Sarah's only going to write about Arab women from now on. But one thing that my publisher told me when we met that meant a lot to me is, you're an excellent writer and we want any story that you can tell. And that's why I got a 2-book deal, not one. Just makes me tear up thinking about it.
And that is so important, to not be pigeonholed as a writer. Coming back to the Netflix short story competition that actually opened the doors for something like this, what was that story about?
So that one was only 1 page, and it's less of a story and more of a scene. But it was about 2 sisters in New York, and they're at home and they're praying, and then they get dressed to go out in the night to meet their friends at a party. And they're trying to make decisions about a boy that they like. And it just shows you how one person can have many different things that pull at them. And it just goes back to the third culture identity that we were talking about, where you want to behave one way with your family, but you also want to be like your friends. And you're trying to find this halfway house of identity. It was just a nice short little scene that is actually now an excerpt from my novel. I put it in there.
There are a lot of young people who want to pursue writing as a full-time career. What would be your suggestion to them?
Get a job in an industry that pays. Meet as many people and get out and travel and see the world as much as you can, because it will enrich you. And if it's really your dream, you will find a way to make it happen. I was able to do this while having full-time jobs with young children during a pandemic. I mean, there were a million reasons to stop that are probably very sound. I maybe should have stopped, but there was something in me that kept going, and it's because writing made me feel really good. It wasn't about getting published at the end of the day. Sitting there and writing was almost a meditative practice that calmed me. I started writing this novel years ago, like I told you, when I was pregnant with my son, but most of it came out of me during the pandemic when I needed to just retreat to a quiet corner of my house and have time to myself, and just there was flow, and it felt really nice. If you can get to that point, you'll win. You're a writer already.
Yeah. And how much of your travels have influenced the book?
A lot, I would say, because travel writing has been so instrumental in teaching me how to write about a place and not be overly descriptive, but focus on the right things. One of the things my agent told me when she signed me was she loved the way that my main character moved through New York, making Manhattan a character in and of itself. The city comes to life because you could see the things I love about it, and you're seeing it through the eyes of an Arab woman. It's not just saying New York has the Empire State Building and Central Park. It's about how it's seen through her eyes. It's a very personal account. So traveling and travel writing has helped me so much in writing this book, but also in understanding that different people are going to read it. How do you write when it's for a general global audience, but make it personal at the same time? So I think my years of traveling and writing together have helped make this book what it is.
Is there a second book waiting to come out? Have you started work on it?
There's going to have to be, because this is a 2-book deal.
Yeah.
The novel that I mentioned to you that got rejections before this one, I'm now trying to edit it. And the main comment that I would get from the rejections was that it's because of the pandemic. It was during the year of 2020 when I was sending out submissions. So I think now might be a better time to try. It's called Disconnected, and it's about a woman who's addicted to the tech world. So she only stays in her room. Everything is done on Zoom. Groceries are ordered online. It's basically like I foreshadowed what the pandemic was going to be. And I think that's why it wasn't well received during that year. But she basically gets offered a promotion at her job. But in order to get it, she has to prove that she can still maintain normal human relationships. So they send her to a Greek island with no Wi-Fi at all. And it's a funny look at how much technology has influenced us to the point where she can't really function without the Google Maps and without the aid of technology. And then she falls in love, and there's a romance there. So I'm planning to edit Disconnected and submit that, but I also have about 10 other ideas. I just need to sit and write them.
More power to your pen. And before we wind up, I just want to ask you this question, because writers are also very scared of rejection. But what can rejection teach writers?
I think that is an amazing question, and it's something that you don't realize how much will affect you. I'm a very positive, strong person. At Google, we used to do these regular personality tests, and it gives you your top 5 traits. My number 1 would always come up as positivity. But I'll tell you, those rejections got me down, like crying in the shower down. And I think you have to go through that to realize that you can't be so precious about your work. You can't write something that everybody will love. It's very subjective. But if you write your truth, the right person will recognize that. And that's what matters. I think with each rejection, you have to reckon with yourself how much you want it. And it's that point of, do I keep going or do I stop? And reframing to not think of a rejection as a no, but as a not for me. And it's a setback rather than a failure. So that you just have to find a different avenue. It's like ants. Like you get roadblocks and they just find another path. The first novel got a lot of rejections. I could have easily stopped. The second novel, I had 5 agents fighting to represent me. And then 3 publishers bidding war, resulting in this 2-book deal from Holt. So if you really want it, just keep going and go for it without worrying about how other people will receive it. It's about you. It's your time. It's you in front of that laptop or in front of that page. Just write, and magic will happen.
Very well said, Sara. You have done us really proud, and I wish you all the best for the book that's going to get published in 2025, right?
Yes, early 2025. We have some time to wait, but thank you for having me here. This has been such a pleasure to speak to you about it.
Thank you so much. The name of the book is What Will People Think? It'll come out in 2025, and Sara Hamdan remains the first Dubai author to win this prestigious 2-book deal with Holt. Thank you so much. So here was the incredible story of Sara Hamdan, whose debut novel, What Will People Think, will come out in 2025, published by Holt. Remember, rejection can sometimes open the doors to various beautiful possibilities. And this is the primary takeaway from this interview. KT Life podcast is available on Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, and Amazon. Please share with us what you thought of this beautiful conversation with Sara Hamdan in the comment section below. Until next week, with camera person Shihab and multimedia producer Phil Green, this is Anamika Chatterjee signing off.